you all. Um, we had a little bit of still a glitch with things I have to work out, but otherwise, I think today's lecture will be very productive. It's kind of one of those days where it's kind of an audible, like an audible in football is when you get up to the line and you see there's a different type of a defense there, and then the quarterback changes things at the last minute. And that's kind of what I did with this one. It's kind of similar to what I was going to talk about, but I believe it was, well, one of you was contacting me about certain things in terms of the practice and comparing it to one of my other students, Robert, and which now this person has taken over Robert's position from before, and Robert's taken over my position and trying to talk to him. And the thing is that after talking to Robert, then this person then looks and finds an old lecture that I gave on the particular subject that he was inquiring about. And this lecture was one that after he listened to it, and it had to do with sweeping and the Buddha's student that couldn't get anything right, so he just the Buddha instructed him to sweep the courtyard, and lo and behold, he became enlightened. And so the big question is, how did that happen? How does somebody get enlightened just by simply sweeping a courtyard? And it's difficult. I think we talked about this last week. So this person then listens to my lecture and then asks me to explain more. And the thing is that my response to him in part was, you want a second cup of slop. Slop is like the gruel that you make, that they just throw in the army, or if you were in a temple or something. I'm not calling temple food slop, but I heard a lot of monastics mention that sometimes when it was somebody else's turn to make their food. But in any case, it's saying, do you really need more? Do you need a second cup of this? If you didn't get it on the first, second, and third one, why do you think that any explanation that I would give you would assist you? There's a flaw in the manner in which you are presenting or trying to understand things. So this is important because this is natural, because we want to sincerely practice. I'm not saying this person isn't a sincere practitioner. I think this person has a very strong route to practice, but unfortunately, this route is one in which they're looking for the words and phrases that can make the difference, and it doesn't work in that way. And so what I wanted to do is run through some different Chan poems and try to give the person a feel for it. And in the practice of Chan, the one thing that we is our common denominator is just this mind, or just. We add this mind simply because we have to mention what we're talking about, but even the thusness or justness or suchness is extra, and we lose that ability to penetrate because of the fact we want to use an intellectual understanding, and we think that if somebody just says it enough time, the words are going to deliver us. If that's the case, then the scholars, the Buddhist scholars that write commentary on the Buddha and the Buddhist historians and philosophers, they would all be enlightened, and we would be circling around them to say, please, great master, tell us, how is this? But they're only the keepers of the knowledge, the librarians. They are not the author. Who is the author? Mind is the author. Mind is Buddha. Buddha is mind. It is in this way. But it cannot be known intellectually. Does not mean that we don't study. Does not mean that I don't present to you. That's not the point. The point is to have this right view. If we have right view, then we can practice in the proper way. Without right view, what happens is that we are amassing this knowledge. We don't know what to do with it. So we could write books, we could write commentaries. We should have been a Buddhist philosopher, a historian, a Buddhist professor. But it doesn't matter. It doesn't necessarily mean because you are any one of these things that you have right view or you've had the realizations or been able to penetrate. That lowly student of Buddha, sweep, just sweeping, was able to penetrate through simply by stopping the mind from this internal discussion, by not clinging to that. Doesn't mean that person didn't have thoughts. It meant that the thoughts just were swept away. As a thought arose, it swept away, arising and falling, arising and falling. This is no mind. It isn't no mind that one is walking around in a catatonic state. I guess maybe if you're a zombie, but we're not Buddhist zombies. We don't walk around mindless. Quite to the contrary, we walk around well-oriented as to time and space, clearly aware of everything that's happening in the present moment, tying it to the past and the future, and seeing that all of that is just mine. This is a realization that cannot be provided to you by a book. One must experience it. The books provide you the way in which to proceed in this manner. So if you try so hard to try to understand it, it will not work for you. When you least expect it, it will come to you, because it is in this way that if you wanted to get close to nature and you tried to chase all of the animals in the forest, they will not come close to you. But you see on these programs like National Geographic and the sorts on the cable stations where somebody is exploring and studying animals, and there they are with a gorilla right next to them, or a bear, or a wolf pack, and they're not devouring them. They can sit with them. Why? Because they don't present any kind of a fear or emotion or anything, no expectation. They're just simply still. They're still in their studies. And here, our stillness and our studies is the present moment. What is arising? Knowing moment to moment to moment, things are arising in accordance with causes and conditions. This is what the Buddha first taught, Pratika Samapada, the 12 Nidanas. We start with that. We don't skip over that to get to the Four Noble Truths because that's easier to do. So then everybody walking around like in a music class, and where the Buddha was teaching the scales and everything else, the Four Noble Truths is like somebody just learning how to strum a guitar. But when the foundation is there, then that's something that's very powerful. But we jump over that, and then everybody's just simply strumming the same tune. What is the tune? Be still, be still. Don't think. They don't even know what don't think means. But they do it because they've read it. Or worse yet, some teachers told them that this is the way to be, without the foundation, without right view. This is why we go back. We go back to causes and effect, because in the present moment, all that is being there is a result of previous causes creating these conditions right now. And these conditions and our reaction to these conditions will produce the causes of whatever happens after that. Buddha Dharma is not so difficult. It's sweet, sweet, sweet. We just are aware of that. We don't judge it. We don't think ourselves to be so incredibly insightful or sagacious to it. We don't think in that way. We just are there in the present moment. So that's kind of a long introduction to what I wanted to talk about, but it's kind of important because what I want to do is give you the readings, but also give you a perspective of it and why we understand or why we present these. So I'm going to start with somewhere where I wasn't expecting I was going to start, but it's important for us to do this. And we're going to Mazu's records, and this is from the 8th century. So this is in the classical period. And he said, all of you should believe that your mind is Buddha, that this mind is identical with Buddha. The great master Bodhidharma came from India to China and transmitted, so he transmitted the one mind teaching of Mahayana. It didn't say he taught it. He said he transmitted it, mind to mind. Mind to mind is simply mind. Mind is Buddha. Buddha is mind. So that all can lead you to awakening. Fearing that you will be too confused and will not believe that this one mind is inherent in all of you, he used the Lankavatara Sutra to seal the sentient being's mind ground. He used the Lankavatara. We've been discussing the Lankavatara for about maybe 3 weeks, 4 weeks perhaps, and going to the final instructions. And Matsu's referring to this Lankavatara Sutra that's coming along, and reading it, he penetrates it and is, how would you say, he was saying, I would think he was saying, I can use that. I can use that. I can use that to help others. Of course, this is why he was doing it. He gave this Lankavatara Sutra over to his disciple and said, here it is. And so he said, this we can use to seal the sentient being's mind ground. Seal it, meaning, what would we mean by seal? Like cover it up? Or seal it in a different way as to clarifying itself in a mind-to-mind transmission, something that's outside of words and phrases. And he says, therefore, in the Lankavatara Sutra, mind is the essence of all Buddha teaching. No gate is the Dharma gate. No gate is the Dharma gate. So they say, what's the Dharma gate? What's the gateless gate? We pass through the gateless gate. We don't have any clue about what that means. Sounds great, though. It's like something like you can tell your friends what you're studying Zen. No, well, actually, it's Chan, but the Japanese, and you go like that through and have to explain it, or you just say, I'm studying Chan, and they go, well, what do you learn? We learn to pass through the gateless gate. That sounds cool, right? And your friends, they might be impressed for about 5 seconds before they say, that sounds like nonsense to me. you have to look into this. When you say something like that, you cannot just be saying things and parroting words. Do not parrot. I'll call you on it. It's okay if you're parrot. It's not too bad. At least you remembered something. But the thing is there's a difference between a book learning and a book recitation and actual realization. And I'm pushing you to the realization. If one wants to know the way directly, ordinary mind is the way. And what Matsu is mentioning here is that this sutra, the Lankavatara Sutra, comes in the class of what's called the Vayapula Sutra. And Vayapula Sutra is a sutra that contains within itself the complete essence of the Buddha teaching. That if one studied that, then all of the essence of the training is explained there. Another sutra such as that would be the Lotus Sutra, is a Vayapula Sutra. And Heirs, our resident expert on the Lotus Sutra, and of course, he doesn't have to go anywhere else. Changing chapters, and it's all there. But if he goes to another sutra, he will see the Lotus Sutra in that sutra. That's why when he's studying right now, he's doing Awakening of the Faith in the Mahayana, I believe. And when I'm speaking about the Lankavatara Sutra, he sees the Lankavatara Sutra there. How could he not? How could he not? It's from the same root. And so this is good. That's why I welcome him to bring that, because it shows to us how we practice. It shows us that we're on the right path, because all of a sudden we say, well, that's very, very curious. It comes out saying the same thing. Of course it does. This is the way that we do things. Continue on. What is meant by the ordinary mind? No activity, no right or wrong, no grasping, no rejecting, neither terminal nor permanent, without worldly or holy. Sometimes it says it's neither sacred nor profane. So we don't see things as worldly or holy. We don't see something that way. One person asked, how is it, when we study the mind, that one can become a sage? And the master said, there's nothing sage-like to it. And this is important, because this goes right directly back to what's being said above, which is that the ordinary mind is the way. We believe we know the ordinary mind, but we only know the confusion in the mind, and we take that to be mind. And so we are looking at things and trying to sort out things. And sometimes there's an analogy of gold or silver and the dross, dross, which is all of the things that are impure within the gold. And we don't see the gold because it's covered by that. You would say like a gold ore doesn't look too gold unless it's a gold nugget, but gold ore doesn't look gold, but within it there is the gold. But we take the world to be this outer aspect, or I shouldn't say outer, but all the part that is not the gold, and we see that as gold. And we see that there. And then if we're in the process of dying, we want to hold on to that. We don't want to die. If we die, it finishes us. But holding on to it, it finishes us. It's like drinking salt water. We don't understand that. We are upside down. And as a result of that, we act unnatural in the samsaric world. Sometimes I say, oh, this is natural, and this is natural for these people to have these feelings. Of course, it's natural in accordance with cause and conditions for the karma that's there. But let's getting a little bit ahead of myself with respect to that. Let's continue on. The way is identical with the Dharma Dhatu. Dharma Dhatu is all phenomenal appearances. Here they say universe, but it's not just universe, it's beyond universe, universes upon universes that are there. And it says, because that's the Dharmakaya, the mind ground, that which enables those things to manifest or appear. Out of sublime functions, as numerous as the sands in the Ganges, none of them is outside the Dharma Dhatu. In other words, saying there's nothing outside of it. No matter how far you try to see or try to go, the Dharma Dhatu would be there. That's why they say if the world expands 500 miles, so does mind. If it contracts, the mind contracts. It is just in this kind of a function that's there. We don't understand that because we are thinking in terms of the senses of a sentient being. Mind is beyond those senses. It attunes to those senses, but it is not limited to those senses, whereas a sentient being is subject to those senses. Does not mean that the mind is not in harmony with karma. It understands karma. And this is a difference, because an appearance body of a Buddha in a samsaric realm would be subject to karmic forces, because that's just natural. But do those karmic forces exist if that appearance body is simply illusory? Then it's an illusory karma. If it was not so, then how could it be said that the mind ground is a Dharma gate? That is an inexhaustible lamp. All dharmas are mind dharmas. All names are mind names. The myriad dharmas are all born from the mind. So all appearances are all born from the mind. And the mind is the root of the myriad of dharmas. So everything arises from the mind itself. The sutra says it is because of knowing the mind and penetrating the original source that one is called a shramana, which means a renunciate. We look at the world, we see it as it is, but we don't cling to it. The principle and phenomena are not different. Everything is wonderful function, and there is no other principle. They all come from mind. For instance, though the reflections of the moon are many, the real moon, there is only one. Though there are many springs of water, water has only one nature. There are many myriad phenomena in the universe, but empty space is only one. Try to contemplate space. Contemplating space contemplates emptiness. We don't cling to those notions, but they allow us to let go of our conditioned thinking about space and about things. There are many principles that are spoken of but unobstructed wisdom is only one. Whatever is established, it all comes from the one mind, like a cloud in the sky that suddenly appears and then is gone without leaving any traces. Also, like writing on the water, neither born nor perishable. That is the great nirvana. The analogy of writing on the water is one of my favorites, because to me, I see things in this way. Sometimes I'll say, put a marker in the water to see what distance you've gone from. How could you even do that? I'm not telling you put a floater. Try to make a mark on the water or cut the water. Can you do it? In bondage, it is called the Tathagata Garba. Very interesting. Now, I want you to think about this, because it's saying in bondage, it's called the Tathagata Garba. When liberated, it is called the pure Dharmakaya. Dharmakaya is boundless. It is essence neither increasing nor decreasing. In order to respond to beings, it can manifest as big or small, round or square. It is like a reflection of the moon in the water. It functions smoothly without establishing roots, not obliterating the condition, not dwelling on the unconditioned. The conditioned is function of the unconditioned. The unconditioned is the essence of the conditioned. Because of not dwelling on support, it has been said, like space, which rests on nothing. Where would space rest? Hey, I need some space. You've got infinite amount of space. Where would you need to rest? The mind can be spoken of in terms of two aspects, birth and death, and suchness. The mind as suchness is like a clear mirror, which can reflect images. The mirror symbolizes the mind. The images symbolize dharmas. If the mind grasps at the dharmas, then it gets involved with external causes and conditions, which is the meaning of birth and death. So here he's going all the way back to the 12 nidanas. He's going right to what the Buddha taught. And people say that Mahayanas and Chan, that's not what the Buddha taught. Excuse me. Here's a proof right here that he's going all the way back and saying causes and conditions. That's why the Heart Sutra came in and said there is no suffering, no cause of suffering, no cessation of suffering, and no path. So that practitioners would go back to Shakyamuni Buddha's original teaching. Shravakas hear about the Buddha nature. Shravakas are sound hearers, people that listen to lectures or read or whatever. They hear about it. While the Bodhisattva's eye perceives the Buddha nature. It's different. When the great Bodhisattva was coursing through the deep Prajnaparamita, he perceived that all five skandhas are empty, thereby removing all suffering. Cut right to it. It is the Buddha perception that is being utilized by the Bodhisattva. That's the difference. One is hearing it and using that, still not bad, but it's still a second level to utilizing right view. And this is what Matsu is pointing to here in his way. He's instructing and distinguishing the Mahayana practice from at that point the Theravadan practice. This was still very early on in in Buddhist practice. It's still the 8th century, so 700 and so AD, CE. The realization of non-duality is called equal nature. We would call it a state of equanimity. Although the nature is free from differentiation, its function is not the same. When ignorant, it is called consciousness. When awakened, it is called wisdom. Following the principle, following the principle is awakening. Following phenomena is ignorance. Ignorance is to be ignorant of one's original mind. Awakening is to awake to one's original nature. That's Mahayana Buddhism in a nutshell. Matsu did an excellent job of distinguishing these points and showing what is the basic tenets of Mahayana practice. And again, it goes to just mind, and that this very mind that we're using is the mind which we have a hard time distinguishing phenomena from its intrinsic nature. Maybe somebody should write a book about that. Well, they did. It's called the Dharma, Dharmata Vibhaga. Look it up. And it's one of the Tathagata Garbha Sutras. But it's showing how this interaction of phenomena, we don't have to cast it out. We just have to illuminate it with the mind's own light. And illuminating with the mind's own light, and which is wisdom, then it's clarified. It's clear. We see it in this way. We see that it is this ignorance is the Tathagata Garbha. And we go, how is that? Because to us, we see these things coming. The Tathagata Garbha is a storehouse or repository for all things that can occur within the samsara. But we do not cling to that, then mind is restored to its intrinsic nature, which is Buddha. It's very simple. But we overthink it, and that's the difficulty. Now, what I wanted to do with the little time that I have left is go over a few Chan poems and show you how this kind of thinking permeated the Chan poems here from the 6th century to the 8th century. And I'm using actually Shifu's book of the Poetry of Enlightenment, which is an excellent book to get a flavor for the literary style and the poems of that time period and their explanations. Some of the poems are instructional how to do it. Others are a reflection of one's mind after enlightenment. So some of them are telling you how to do it. Others are telling you this is using analogies, a clear still pond on an autumn day, to show you kind of what it feels like if you multiplied it times infinity. But in any case, let's read a few of these. This one is from the 6th century, called Calming the Mind by Shi Wang Ming. And I'm going to go just straight in order to these. And I just picked these out very quickly. And I'm not reading the whole thing. I could not possibly read them all and discuss them. I just want to give you a little portions of it for you to contemplate. But he was known for his naturalist approach. This is a little kind of Taoish, but still goes to the point, which is a quote that he said, "Through excessive thinking, the will is weakened. The more one knows, the more the mind is confused." And it's difficult for us to understand. How can you say the more one knows, the more the mind is confused? And I remember something my father said when I was young. And my father was very, very wise. To me, in my way of looking at it, I would, people that I've met, I'd only put him second to Master Sheng as a person with great wisdom and very simple, very humble. And he would say, "I know nothing about nothing." And I go, when I was young, that sounds so stupid and dumb. How can you possibly say, don't say that to people, Dad? You know, I know nothing about nothing. And it brings a tear to my eyes now when I realize how wise that was, you know. It's just incredibly deep. I mean, it's so incredibly deep. And the manner in which he said it was so sincere and so humble. And I have to apologize to my dad. I missed that. I picked it up later in life, but I missed it when it was coming around the first time. But if you live your life that way, it's not too bad. So one of the quotes in the Calming the Mind in the first verse: "Too much knowledge leads to overactivity. Better to calm the mind. The more you consider, the greater the loss. Better to unify the mind. Excessive thinking weakens the will. The more you know, the more your mind is confused. A confused mind gives rise to vexation. A weakened will obstructs the Tao." Here, the Tao is the path. And so we're seeing this and we're saying there's a little bit more to this than just simply intellectual approach to things, because during that time period, there were so many different scholars, and Confucius scholars, Taoist scholars, Buddhist scholars, and they're all pontificating about this and that and these points. And Matsu's looking at him and going, you know, too much noise, too much static, too much viewpoints in terms of things, instead of just simply seeing things as they are. We get to this poem, which is called Mind King. Very interesting. Now, this is 6th century, probably mid 6th century. So he passed away in 569. So I imagine it was probably mid 5th century or 6th century when he did this. And this is written by this Master Fu. It's kind of interesting. No, I won't even say it. But Master Fu was a lay practitioner, and he was also known as Fu Yu. And in that time period, he was actually a farmer, and as a farmer, he wrote this poem upon his realization: "The empty hand holds the hoe, feet walking, riding the water buffalo. The man walks over the bridge. The bridge flows. The water does not flow." Or you could say the water is still. Can you make any sense out of that? Except saying his understanding is way beyond mine if we're going to give him the credit that he knows what he's talking about. He knows what he's talking about. But it's absolutely amazing because it stops you from being able to intellectualize an answer. How can you intellectualize an answer? That's preposterous. You know, the water flows, we can see it with our eyes and it's flowing, but the bridge is still. Otherwise, how can we get across to the other side? So we start intellectualizing, and so then we say, therefore, Fu Yu doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's not that way. This Chan poem or this verse is very incredible. It's extremely deep, and I welcome you to explore it. So let's get to something in his poem, The Mind King, and we're going to go to a little bit further down in it. When you realize original mind, the mind sees Buddha. The mind is Buddha. The Buddha is mind. Very, very simple. Foom, 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 until there's no foom. Sweep, 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 sweep. It's very easy. But intellectual would say that's nonsense. Where does that take you? Precisely. Every thought is a Buddha mind. Buddha mind dwells on Buddha. If you wish to accomplish this soon, be vigilant and disciplined. So seeing things, he's telling you this is how it is, but be disciplined. Be disciplined in what way? To know that all thoughts, all appearances, all arisings arise from the Buddha. In the phenomenal world, it's arising from the Tathagata Garbha. In Buddha mind, it's the Dharmakaya. The two are not separate. Again, I'm giving you food for thought, not going through a deep analysis of these poems, which these definitely need a deeper exploration, but just to give you a taste for the feel or the spirit of Chan. This next one comes, and it's probably one of the most famous ones that we know, which is Faith in Mind by Sesang. And Faith in Mind has its very famous opening, which is, the supreme way is not difficult if one does not pick and choose, neither love nor hate, and you will certainly understand. Be off by a hair, and you'll be as far apart as heaven and earth. If you want it to appear, be neither for nor against it. And it continues in this way. But the part I wanted to emphasize to you tonight or today is, yet do not even, it says, do not imbibe in dualistic views. Take care not to seek after them. As soon as there is right and wrong, the mind is scattered and lost. The two comes from the one. Yet do not even keep the one. It is why we say it is, if everything returns to the one, where does the one return to? Mind. There is no one. Even though we talk about the one mind, it is only for the expedient purposes of describing it in a samsaric way. Outside of samsara, which samsara is an illusion, there is no one. It is just the thusness without the thusness being spoken. So it says, yet do not keep even the one. When one mind does not arise, myriad dharmas, many dharmas, uncountable dharmas, are without defect. Without defect, without dharmas, no arising, no mind. Now we get to the Song of Mind, which is another popular Chan poem from Nuito Fajun. And so it reads this way, and I'll read the first stanza here. The nature of mind is non-arising. What need is there of knowledge or views? Originally, there is not a single Dharma. Why discuss inspiration and training? It cuts right to the chase. It goes to the heartwood. The nature of the mind is non-arising. Its essence is just itself. Where would it arise? Where would mind arise? If everything is mind and mind creates everything, could mind arise anywhere other than itself? So if mind arises, then it would not be mind, because it would have had to had some primordial self or source for it to arise. So those things that arise phenomenally are mind, but they should not be taken as mind, such as consciousness. They belong to mind, but mind doesn't arise. All of these things are, if you had a dream last night and you won the lotto, where's your ticket? Go cash your ticket in. Do you have it? I won $100 billion. I'm the richest man in the world. Where's your ticket? It's in the dream. Well, go back and get it. You can't do that. It's just a dream. It's not real. Mind is real. What dreamed it was real. What produced it was real, but it's an illusion. So it's going straight to the heart to say that the nature of the mind, this intrinsic nature that we've been talking about, does not arise. Yet we get confused and we believe that all of this is arising in our mind. Originally, there was not a single Dharma. So going back intrinsically to it, why discuss inspiration and training? So this is interesting, because this last part you would think of saying like, hey, give it up. You guys are just wasting your time to be inspired or to train. To train what? I want to train to be a better illusory sentient being, so you can win an award in samsara. And it's not telling you not to study. A lot of times during this time period, people were thinking, since it's beyond words and phrases, there was no need to study. But it was like a pushing back against the intellectuals that wanted to intellectualize everything and start talking about things in such a high state and high level, even that they could understand, or maybe they could understand, or maybe they could postulate what their master said, and so, for instance, in Huayan or Tian Tai school, which I'm not cutting down those schools, I'm just cutting down, and I've seen people have such a strong intellectual reliance on these schools that it's turned into worthless trash for them. But it's good, and I'm not telling you that you shouldn't do that. I'm just saying that you have to understand intrinsically it's already there. This is right view. This is important that we see things in this way. Otherwise, we just run into a big problem with this. I once had many years ago, I have very few occurrences like this where somebody had emailed me and said he was going to come to my class and he was looking forward to chatting with me. And there was an air of a bit of arrogance in the manner in which he was saying this, and it was something. And I would say I was probably guilty of that the first time I went to see Shifu, in New York, because I thought, like we were like this. And the moment I saw him, I just said, I'm not worthy. I realized that right away. I was like, this person's on a whole different level. And meeting him one-on-one in person, it was like I was totally subjugated to his great wisdom and compassion. I could tell that I was in the presence of somebody that was very, very important to this world. And but this person came to my class. He did not introduce himself, and he sat in the back, and he was there, and he was listening to my lecture. I asked if there's any questions, no questions. And that day I had a particularly trying day. I barely made it there in time from my work. And so I was tired. And this person comes to talk to me, and he says to me, oh, you were talking about this master who said this, but this other master said this. And he wanted to debate, and this is kind of the debates that I say, how many angels can balance on the point of a pin type of debate. And please don't talk to me about that. I don't. I'm not interested in that. And so I said, the way that you talk and the way that you act and the way that you hold the sutras to you are shit. And he was so surprised. And he said to me, are you saying, because he was like one of these investigative reporters that wants to get all this dope on me, right? Are you saying that the sutras are shit? And I said, no, I didn't say that. I said, to you, they're shit. Because that's what you turn them into. You just turn them into this intellectualism, and you have no sincerity to penetrate them. So you're wasting your time, and you're wasting my time. And it was probably the best thing I could have told him at that time. I never heard it from him again, so maybe he's trolling some other instructor somewhere down the line. But it isn't. It isn't in that way, because people they don't understand that. They just hear the people talk, or they hear this, and they become enamored with them. Master Ling Chi said, don't hold the instructors and the teachers and the masters at such high esteem. You have to look at things for yourself, to really investigate. And that's what's important, is it's not in the words. What I'm doing here is not trying to parrot others' words. I'm imploring you to study for yourself, to penetrate the sutras, to penetrate it, so that you see that it's not in the words, in the phrases. So when you come to the class, you come with the attitude that you really want to realize what mind is, and that you're set on that course, understanding that it's beyond words and phrases, but nevertheless the sincere practice that you give is going to be a practice that will be there. It is the gate that you're looking for. But if you think that the words are the gate, or your understanding of the words, it isn't going to be in that way. But once putting that down, you'll find that you're going to be able to penetrate so rapidly. It's just like Harry. Harry, he's been studying for so long. And so he's reading the Awakening of the Faith of the Mahayana, or he's reading the Lotus. Now, wherever he's mining, he's pulling out pure gold. because it's always been there. Just when he was younger, he couldn't see it, but it was there. But he was nevertheless like a miner prospecting, knowing that he had faith in mind to do it. I respect that. I respect anybody that does it, whether they're an old timer, sorry, Harry, or they're novices, that are there. And I see people like, for instance, Tori, who's a real newbie, but she's not. She's not. She has this great sincerity, that's there. I'm thankful for people like Frank, who endlessly asked me questions. Now that the parrot has gone into hiding, we've got Frank that asks questions. The questions people don't want to ask. It's not because I don't have patience with him. I have all the patience in the world with him. And my way of doing that is by helping him the best I can. It is people who simply want to engage in some kind of intellectual discussion, which, thank goodness, none of you are in that category, that I have no time for. But if you ask sincere questions, you'll get a sincere response, but it may not be the answer that you are looking for. But just take it as it comes, because that's what's important, is that you see things as they are clearly. So we only got maybe 1/3 through these. I might continue on with that next week, because I think it's helpful to get these snippets, and you see this common vein that runs through all of the Dharma practice, and it's always been there. It's been there from the beginning, from Shakyamuni Buddha, and it is what the Buddha taught. Thank you. Amitofo. We can have questions. Okay, Tori, you go first.
Thank you, Gilbert. Let me lower my hand. Okay. So what I heard earlier, you were reading about the Tathagata Garbha, being that it's bound. So, and also Dhammakaya is boundless, it's liberation, right? So my understanding is that maybe it's when one is referring to that one has still have the perception that they have a form, so they're being limited by form. Therefore, within the form, there is Tathagata Garbha, the original nature. And when Dharmakaya means that it's limitless. There's no more form, no perception of any limited by that form. So that's why it's liberation, and that Dhammakaya can take any form to help sentient beings. I don't know if my understanding is correct.
It's not too far from it. I mean, what you just stated right now, in that quick of a passing of that information to you is excellent. It is in this way. I could pick on a few things in terms of what you're saying. The only reason I would pick would be just to inspire you to go a little further into that, to see, so then how do we explain the phenomena and its relationship to the mind? But you did that with the Tathagata Garbha, and you understand that relates only to appearances within the dream state, and so that's something that is not something that you would is let's say is not the intrinsic mind, although it's not separate from mind. And so you just kind of work in this way, and if you can work in this way, and then just keep contemplating that. So it's a good place for you to be. There was a quote that I said once to some other people that were ripe, and that is that the Buddha's used the vexations of sentient beings in order to practice. And you kind of say, well, what does that mean? But as you begin to practice it, or you see it, the ones that I said it to, one particular person, she was so ripe at that moment. It was just like you could literally see the eggshells falling off of her. That it just simply just shattered her, because right away that was her one of the 84,000 doors to go through. And so these things are the ways that you look at it. So good. Yeah, just keep playing with that, and no, don't be too proud of yourself. Just keep practicing hard, and it will come. When you get to be Harry's age, well, I think he's about 120 now, like a year younger than me, you might get it. Okay. All right. We'll go to Sam next.
Thank you.
Hello, Gilbert. Thank you. First, before my question, I actually wanted to just thank you, because you, in reference to the man who asked you the question, oh, well, you said this, but this master said this. I wanted to thank you for sharing that, because I believe we actually, in one swift motion, cut through me trying to intellectualize something. Because last week you had mentioned to me in my question to keep contemplating, to contemplate mind, contemplate what is it. And then I actually had been talking with Mick yesterday at DDM Chicago, in the Platform Sutra. It basically is saying, like, we don't contemplate the mind, we don't do this. And I wanted to come to you and ask you, well, you said this, but Platform Sutra says this. And I realized right in that story you were sharing with me, I saw myself, and I realized I was making shit out of gold. So I wanted to thank you for doing that. And then my only question today was that I wrote down was, when you were mentioning the Lotus Sutra and the Lankavatara, how all of the Buddha's teaching can be found in there, and like how Harry has penetrated the Lotus Sutra to the point where he can see that everywhere in other sutras. I just wanted to ask you, is the Platform Sutra like that?
Yes. It is Vayapula. It is clear that it's all there, and if you studied with that, it will have everything that's there. You can become an expert on it, or you can study, other things. And, my advice is poke around a little bit, so that you get faith, that you see all of a sudden, oh my gosh, before I thought these sutras were talking about different things, but in fact, they're all saying the same thing. And when you look at even the Tathagata Garbha sutras, they're so deep, but they're all saying the same thing. It's the same thing as the Diamond Sutra. It's the same thing as the Heart Sutra or the Mahaprajnaparamita Sutras. They all come from the same source, and they show the practice. Okay, and so I think that's something. It's just a matter. I think Frank was the one that was asking me, where does one even start? And that was a good question, because with me, I had no idea where I was going to start. And when I first started out, I'm going like, I don't know. And it was very funny, because when I was practicing with this one great Qigong master, he told the people to get me a book on Buddha Dharma. And they went, which one? And he said, doesn't matter, just get him a book. And so they gave me a book, which I still have, which was the Diamond Sutra, and I think the other one was might have been the Platform Sutra, but I mean, it was something like, wow, this sounds interesting, but I don't understand what I read, but I know that whatever's there, I need to understand it. I was driven by that, and it was probably the best book that anybody could have given me, was this Rubik's Cube of a puzzle to keep twisting this way and this way, or using the diamond's facets to look through it. And so you just use your heart and practice, and you'll find the way to do that. You can practice and study the Platform Sutra, and then you can go to some other sutra. It doesn't matter. Don't be in a hurry to get there, but little by little, it will come to you a clearer path as to what to study. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Was that your question?
Yeah, no,
Oh,
that was
okay.
that was so amazing. Thank you. Amitabha.
No, Harry.
Hey, Gilbert. Just as to my age, Professor Irwin Corey was asked about the median age of the Friars Club. And he said the median age was deceased. So I'm a few years older than that.
Yeah.
So, just a couple comments. One, actually, from the Awakening of Faith, just one sentence, which sort of nails a lot of what you're saying, is that it is impossible to speak about any Dharma. Right. So right there's just, nothing will actually describe it.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting because you have to kind of reverse engineer what that means, and without reverse engineering it, you take it on the cable station level, or you could take it to that metaphysical level, or you could take it to this other level of realization, which I call esoteric. Well, we were talking about the paramitas, and it was very funny because today I was reading something that we didn't get to in this one, but it was saying the same thing about the paramitas, and saying they're just a reflection of mind, and so when you see it, it's like from a totally different viewpoint, and so that what you said, you penetrated through it, so as a result of that, then it's very, very good, in terms of how you're looking at it. Now your thing is, how do you explain that to other people?
Yes. So, right. Well, that's a good question. But one other thing I'd just like to share, because you mentioned the Lotus Sutra, and there's the Gateless Gate. The ninth case is actually about the Lotus Sutra. Its great penetrating wisdom was at the door of Buddha Dharma, but it did not appear to him. So the monk asked Master Rung, "Why did this happen?" And the master said, "That's a good question." He said, "Well, why didn't it appear to him?" And his answer was, "Because it didn't." That's it. And so this is a great koan for absolutely cutting through any kind of mental proliferation, because there's nowhere you can go. He stopped them in its tracks. And then the thing I just wanted to read to you, see if you could comment.
I think it was not only did he stop him in his tracks, but he hit him with a laser beam and disintegrated him, and hopefully that would happen. If not, then he'll just walk away with a bad laser burn, and wondering what the heck did that mean.
So here's Wumen's comment, which I thought you might want to comment on.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
"You may know the old barbarian, but you are not allowed to understand him." Of course, the old barbarian's Buddha, right? "If an ordinary person knows, he becomes a sage. If a sage understands, he becomes an ordinary person." So this is just destroying everything.
Yeah, pretty much. It's an interesting thing in terms of doing that. It's kind of like what I was saying with the laser beam. The thing is that if the person is thinks they're a sage about it, they become an ordinary person and walk away. If they let the beam hit them, then it's all there. You may pass. Well, not you, but mine may pass. And that's the thing, is that was the test, was that is there someone that will pass this final gate? No, you can't get there from here. So it's interesting because the illusory you doesn't have a ticket. It's very interesting. There's a whole bunch of stuff that's there on that, but those are all kind of fun ones. But all of a sudden, when you hear them in other contexts, you go, "Oh yeah, that's what they're talking about. Look at that." It's very, very amazing. No matter what, try it with the Tathagata Garbha Sutras, and you'll be very surprised. Okay, it'll ring the same way, even on those very deep sutras. Okay. Any other questions?
Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. No? All right. Yeah, what I try to do is mix up the teachings a little bit so it doesn't become stale. So when you tune in, you're going to go, "Oh, we're going to be, listening to chapter 15 of the Avatamsaka Sutra. How long is the sutra? And you'll just go, oh my gosh, that's too much. If anybody, you've seen the Avatamsaka Sutra, the Huayan Jing, it's about that thick. And so you could take a lifetime, and you'd have generations of kids continuing on the study of it. But I want to give you snippets. I want to give you things that will help you, that you can get a feel for it, and that's important. So if we practice in this way, this is something that helps us quite a bit. The main thing is that you have to do it. Our thing, and our master Sheng, he embodied Samantabhadra's vow, one of the 10 great vows of following the Buddhas in study, and he really raised the bar for us to say, okay, are we really going to be Buddhist practitioners? Are we just going to be, either devotional or to believe in superstitions and things like that? And if you see some of his YouTube videos, you'll understand that I'm not saying anything that he's not saying in terms of that. And it doesn't mean that there's not a place for devotional. There is. There is a place for faith. But we also have to become very well-knowing practitioners in terms of becoming acquainted with the sutras. And so that, just imagine that if you're going to talk to somebody that let's say a Catholic or something, and try to explain to them, Buddha Dharma, no, heaven forbid a Protestant, but a Catholic, at least you could say, well, Guan Yin is like the Virgin Mary, and so but you have to have ability to explain things and to articulate if somebody's from the Vajrayana school or the Theravadan school, or somebody's following Madhyamika or Yogacara school, Tiantai school, Huayan. You need to do that. You need to understand that. I remember once I was with Shifu, and I was so ignorant at the time. I mean, I was studying, but I was just barely embarking in Buddha Dharma, and he introduced me to John Crook, which is a Dharma heir. He's passed, wonderful gentleman, English gentleman, and he said, "This is John Crook. He studies Madhyamika," and I just nodded my head, going like, "I don't know what the heck that is," and I went, "Well, I'm going to find out," and but honestly, I looked at myself and said, I have to elevate my practice. And each of you should do that. You should elevate your practice. Don't just simply say, oh, it's okay, I can, I don't need to study more or something. Always push it, especially those who are Dharma teachers, you can't fake it. Those who are Dharma teachers to be, really study hard, because you're going to get people that are going to come into your class like intellectuals, and they're going to be telling you stuff, and you have to know your stuff. You can't fake it. And if you don't know it, you don't know it. That's okay too. But the thing is that what right view gives you is the perspective of right view. You can't go wrong. It doesn't matter what sutra you open up. It's going to have right view in it. That's what's going to be there. Everything is about mind. Mind is Buddha, Buddha's mind. And so when you see that everywhere, then it gives you faith in mind to do that. So I strongly encourage you to study hard. Okay. If you want to be a good practitioner and somebody that can hold the light for others to see from, please practice your best. when I say practice your best, practice sincerely. Don't leave anything, you know, out. Don't think that you couldn't do more. I keep looking at it and going, oh my gosh, you know, I want to take a rest. And to me, I just look at it and go, you know, I'll rest when I'm dead, you know, until I cycle back through. But the thing is it's better for me just to do it in this way. As I mentioned, I told people many times, I don't want people to look at me if I was in a casket and say, "Oh, he looks so peaceful and so great. He must have gone to nirvana." No, I want them to look at him. Wow, this guy burned himself out. Look, his body looks all beat up. You know, I want to use it to the last moment. No, not for my sake, but for leaving some legacy, continuing on Shifu's legacy of Buddha Dharma and elevating the Chan school to its rightful place. Okay, Michael, go ahead. You're unmute yourself.
Yeah,
You go.
thank you, Gilbert. Two questions. One very pragmatic. What is the title of today's lecture?
Mind is Buddha and Buddha is mind.
Okay. And the second is, since you mentioned the Vaipulya Sutras answering Sam's questions, whether the platform has it all. So one question which I always had, but it doesn't really fit today, but it's a good place to ask it, about the Vimalakirti Sutra. And to my knowledge, which is not large, it's the only place or the only sutra where they talk about the Buddha fields and cultivating the Buddha fields, which I think is very important for what it means to be a bodhisattva. And I don't see this in all the other so-called Vaipulya Sutras. I don't see it in the Diamond Sutra. I don't see it in the platform. I don't see it in the other sutras I know. So is this something one arrives to when one realizes the depth of the other sutras? Is the notion of cultivating the Buddha field then clear, or is it something extra?
The Buddha field is, and it's interesting because I think there was a part in Alankavatara, which I didn't get to, where they talk about all of these names. And the idea of the Buddha field is not other than the Dharmakaya. And so this whole idea of the Buddha field is this infinite field of mind. And so it's just using a different term, but it's simply just going back to one mind. That's why I say, even though it looks like it's very, very complicated, it is simply saying the same thing as the others, just in fancier words, you know, and more profound and maybe a little bit deeper, you know, in terms of it, where somebody would play something, you know, and it reminds me of that scene in the Mozart one where the Scagliari had this kind of a promenade entrance music that he gave to Mozart, you know, and the music was all there, and then Mozart remembered it and played it back, and then add flourishes to it, and the Tathagata Garbha adds those flourishes to it, you know, and maybe enriches it, but the basic principle is nevertheless the same as the original piece. And so it's fine, because once you have that, then you can get into those and not be intimidated by them, where you're going like, Buddha feels different than the Dharmakaya. And so what I'd suggest that you study is the Dharmakaya, Nirmanakaya, and Sambhogakaya, and just take some time to work through those and to see how they fit. And it's kind of an interesting thing, because different masters use them in different ways to describe things in terms of how it is. But it may be worth your while to do that, so that you see ultimately they're not separate, but you see them where they're at and why they're at, and how you look at it. It's kind of the key, the same thing that Tori had in terms of this, that the Tathagata Garbha is for the phenomenal world, but the Dharmakaya is mine, and that's the Buddha field. So it's good. I mean, those are the questions you should be asking, because it shows, that the sincerity in what you're doing, and you don't get puzzled about them. No, so that's good. So thank you for asking that question. Okay, I guess that's about it for tonight. Thank you all for attending. Good to see you, and keep practicing. We'll come back next week. Again, I try to mix it up a little bit so it doesn't get, too rote or just a different facet of the diamond every time. So I thank you all for doing that. For you on the East Coast, good night. I know it's getting late for you, so take care. Bye-bye, everyone.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Yeah.
Thank you, Gilbert. Thank you, Michael.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Yeah,
Michael.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Santa wasn't feeling well today, so we gave her the night off, or she took the night off, so that's good. Hopefully she'll be fine. So, but anyway, good. It's good to see you, Eon. You're still around. I see.
All around.
Where is your bell?
It's right here.
There you go. See there, I know you'd have it.
I've been practicing the one-handed.
The one-handed one.
Yeah.
You have to practice the one hand clap. The sound of one hand clapping.
I know that in order to truly be able to experience that, I have to go to you to see the man himself.
Yeah. Well, I don't think you're going to see that because you don't see the dharmas as shit. So I don't think I have to demonstrate that to you. So, I thought the recording was already stopped. That's not going to be on there, is it?
We can cut it out. It's no problem.
Yeah. Yeah. There's this chit chat at the end is just chit chat, not anything. So anyway, and then Esther, please on this weekend, please contact me, and I'm going to work on my computer and see if I can get it back up to speed and running right. Because whatever happens, it freezes, and so so then that's why I'm using this, but I'd rather use my computer. So I'm going to try to install Zoom, and then maybe that might work.
Yeah, I will bug you this weekend for this.
All right. Along with other things, I think I have most of the stuff that done for you, and I think you could probably send the stuff over that I suggested for the lecture descriptions. Well, hold on. Remind me, because I might change one based on what I was doing, but I'll try to decide how I'm going to do that. Okay. All right, you guys. I'm gonna go. Yeah.
You haven't got the title for last week's talk. Yes.
I didn't give a title.
No.
No.
I think the mind according to the Lankavatara Sutra.
Could it be presenting the Dharma with right view? I have it written down in my note, but I'm not sure whether this is the one.
Yeah.
Defending the Dharma with right view.
Presenting the Dharma with right view.
Oh, yeah, you could use that too. It'll work.
Thanks.
They're
Thanks,
all
Esther, for asking.
interchangeable. Doesn't matter. What happened to Frank? There he is. Oh, okay. So you're there. So this one was for you.
Oh, was it? Well, thank you.
It was totally for you. So hopefully you didn't fall asleep. So,
Of course.
So it is for you. Again, it's something because you're, even you ask your questions and stuff, they're inspiration to me and keep me, like not going too lofty in my presentations, so that we don't lose the novice. And so that's good. Okay, I'm gonna go see if I can find some food to eat, and then I have to go back and return myself to doing work for tomorrow. Okay. Good night, everyone.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.